The more the importance of the task is, the more you're gonna try to control everything your body does with your conscious mind.
Since you've been doing it for so long, it's almost like in your DNA now, right? Like you said, to you, it's not a big deal, but since you're on that level now with masters, I get it because of the stakes.
Don't try to tell yourself you're not nervous. That's the biggest mistake I think a lot of people make is like, no, I'm cool, man, I'm cool. And then there's like this disconnect from what you're saying to what you're feeling.
Yeah.
And then you just get this whole thing, and then now you know you're lying to yourself and everything. It's like,
the mental gymnastics.
You just have to accept, move forward. Accept, move forward. Like recognize these certain situations, move forward. When I do that, I feel very natural. If I can, I will refrain from hurting somebody. And that's different. I know some people are not that way. Some people will use the tournament as an excuse to hurt somebody.
You know, I'm an evolutionary psychology kind of guy, and our default is to be violent, but along the ways, we had these laws in place, and all of a sudden we can't just go around hurting people.
Yeah, just
we go in tribes. We go in tribes and take over, raid, pillage, whatever we got to do. And that's our ancestors, and that goes into our genes. All right. Sensei Adam, why the gi?
About 20 years ago, I started training jiu-jitsu, and a lot of the tournaments were with gi. Most of the tournaments I did as a white belt, blue belt, purple belt were in the gi. I have been training no gi just about as long, but it just seems like performance-wise, I tend to do a little bit better with the gi. So most of my tournaments are with gi. Most of my recreation stuff is with no gi. Right now, I train equally in both, but I'll probably do some no-gi tournaments coming up soon, but most of the time my tournaments are with gi just because it's like what I'm used to and what I perform better.
What do you like about the gi compared to no-gi? Like, I know it's a slower kind of, there's a lot of friction and it's a slower pace kind of deal, and both benefits your jiu-jitsu game.
Yes.
But what is it about the gi to you, since you're so experienced and you've been doing it for a long time, three stripe white,
three stripe black,
stripe black belt. That's a long time. Yeah. What is it about the gi that kind of stimulates you to keep going with it?
I think it's the complexity, and it's just the technical aspect of it. It's more of a game. Like for me, I don't have like a violent nature about me really, which is ironic because my whole career is built around like a little bit of violence. But there's a pretty decent complexity in the gi, and again, I think it's just, for some reason or the other, I find that my performance level comparatively is just higher in the gi for some reason. Like my tactics, I have a lot of lapel grips that I like to make in my passing tactics. I'm a passer usually, and if I could get the person down and be on top, that's where I like to be. And so my passing tactics with the gi, I'm more creative and I'm more like innovative because my style really is unorthodox. So basically like, it's not like completely out of the realm of people's preparation, but it's not like mainstream. Like when I play guard, I don't just be like, okay, De La Hiva, like go into the main moves. Like I have a little bit of flair on the type of techniques I do, and it kind of throws people off a lot. So especially in tournaments, especially if you've never gone against me or never studied my matches, I like to take people out of the main line, because a lot of people prep for tournaments, right? They get like these lines that they want to get into.
You mean it's like a linear thinking?
And I just want to take them out of their prep. I just want to go, okay, well, we're going to play jiu-jitsu, but all the stuff that you like thought you were going to do, you're not going to do. So you better be good at like thinking on the fly.
Right.
And most of my techniques that I like to do require the person to respond in a sort of intuitive manner, not in a prepared manner.
Yeah.
Right?
Would you say that's where you strive off the best? It's kind of like improv, right? Like in comedy, you're just kind of thinking off the cuffs at times.
Yeah. And so ironically though, I don't like to have a super fast pace. What I like to do is I like to get the tactics that I use. I like to get somewhere where they have to think, and I can move like at sort of medium pace, not like super fast, but not super slow. And I like to have the match move like sort of like at a jog, right? Which is why I like the gi. Scrambles for me, they're fine. Like I can do okay in scrambles, but I tend to perform my best, probably like a medium to high pace. So the gi kind of offers me the chance to control where that happens. Now, again, recreationally, I like any pace, fast, slow, whatever, however you want to go. But like my highest performance where I tend to do the best would be like at that level, like right where we're like, you know, energy is okay, but we're not just like full on scrapping, like nonstop movement, but it's also not like getting too stale, right? Like there's some amount of progress happening. And I feel like I can control that better with the gi than a no gi.
Yeah, because of the experience that you have. You know, I just thought of this, the interesting about the no gi to gi thing, like on the no gi, you have to think quick because there's so many scrambles, but then at the gi, it's a slower pace, but you have to think like, it's so, they're strategic, obviously, in two different ways. One slower, but it's like, oh, okay, it's a slow progression, which makes you think, seems like you think a lot harder, but then with the no-gi, it's like so fast-paced that it's like, okay, let's do this, let's do that. And so your mind's going at different paces.
I think, it is slightly different pace. It is a little bit faster. I don't mind it. Like lately, I've been really on a no-gi kick. We do 50% no-gi here. And so every other, like I have gi and no-gi classes available every day. So I'm in the gi and I'm out of the gi every day. Right. So like 6 days a week, we're here training, and like Monday through Saturday, I'm doing both gi and no gi every day. Right. So like I get the same amount of training, and luckily in this area, there's a lot of like really good schools, strong schools, both gi and no gi. So, and I have a lot of friends around here, so I could go and visit them. And so I could get decent no gi training and then really decent gi training at the same time. And then I can, you know, I guess tournament wise, I use tournaments for a tool, like as a tool for personal growth. And it's not really like I'm going to try to become like world champ or anything like that. I just want to better myself. And when you see your name next to somebody else's name, you train harder, you train more purposeful, you prep more, and it holds you accountable. And so just signing up for a tournament, like it just reminds me like, okay, I got to stay sharp. Like don't get complacent, you know, and just kind of like stay on it. And it helps when your students see you compete and everything like that. So then you can like kind of back up while you're teaching and everything. So.
Yeah. I just talked to, actually one of the people that I train with, and he says that competing is so important because it puts you in a place like they have weight classes and then it puts you in a realistic kind of gauge, right? To where if we're training here, we're kind of like just having fun. Obviously, we're not like trying to kill each other, but we are. But you'll give a little bit of people more room to like move around and all that. But in competition, it's so primitive, and it's as closest that you're going to come to like a real life event when if anything were to happen.
I think what a tournament does is it mimics the adrenal response that you're going to have. Because you like, it's very common for people to get nervous in a tournament, and in a street fight, you're also going to be a little nervous. In fact, I would imagine you're less nervous in a street fight than you are in a tournament.
Well, really? Why would you say that?
Because, well, unless somebody says like, meet me in the parking lot at 5 and you have hours to think about it. Like it's just going to happen, right? Like if you're just at a place and things happen, and then you're not going to have a time to like marinate with it and be like, oh man, I hope I beat this guy. Like you're not going to be thinking about that. But when you go to a tournament in jiu-jitsu, you have weeks that you're preparing. Everybody knows you're going to be competing. You're telling everyone. And then let's say tournament's on Saturday. On Monday, everyone's going to ask you how it went. You're going to have to prepare this thing. So you're like, you really want to win. And I have like an excitability scale that I made up, but like I'll reference it. Like, let's say like just sitting and chatting, you're like at like a 5 out of 100, right? Like a 5 out of 100, like real low excitability. And like, if you're like in an absolute firefight where you like might die, that might be like 100, right? Like the top, the most excited you'll ever get, the most like nervous or like, you know,
those epinephrines go up.
Right. You know, totally up. A jiu-jitsu tournament, it's like 80. Like it's pretty high. Like it's not, you're not like relaxed And it's actually not very enjoyable for a lot of people.
Is it because of the mind or the
It's all psychological. Yeah. Physically, it's the same stuff you're doing in the gym. But psychologically, because it's so important to you and you feel like you're going to be judged on this one, your performance goes down. There's a lot of reasons for that. One of the main reasons for that is because you're putting conscious thought into your movements. And when you do that, it's actually very metabolically inefficient.
You're not in a flow state kind of thing.
Yeah. So what happens is, like, the analogy I like to use is think of a little kid filling a glass of water up to the top, because little kids always want to fill it all the way up. And then they're trying to carry it back to the table and they're just like, right? They're so concerned because, that's a new task for them. They're not used to doing that. So they have to like contract both sides of their muscles. We call it co-contraction, when you're like, so your forearm flexes, your extensors flex at the same time, and you have no net movement, but you're all tense, right? Because your brain is trying to tell your hands like, oh my gosh, like, like I gotta keep this steady. This is so important to me. But if you or I were to grab that cup of water to go put it on the table, it'd be very easy for us. We would just grab it and we'd put it on the table and we'd be really relaxed and we'd get a better result. We wouldn't spill it all, probably, right? And so you might then come to the conclusion that only novel tasks require that conscious thought. But it's not only novel tasks. The conscious thought is only novel tasks. The conclusion you might come to is only novel tasks end up creating that phenomenon where you're co-contracting your muscles and you're doing all that stuff, right? But it's also the task importance, and it's also the conscious thought that does that, right? So you're trying to override your like automatic response, right? And what'll happen is, and this is I take the analogy further and I say, okay, well, to prove that, imagine now that is not a cup of water, but it's a cup of red wine. And you're at your like boss's house.
There's more at stake.
And there's white carpet underneath you, right?
Yep.
Well, now you're not going to be like, oh, let me just put it on the table. You're going to be like, dude, you're just like the kid. You're going to look just like the little kid trying to pull the cup. Don't spill it, right? Because you're going to be like, man, I can't spill it on this carpet right now, right? And I always take it one step further. I'm like, imagine that you're like live streaming to the entire nation and the original Declaration of Independence is underneath you and you have a cup of red wine, right? You're going to be sweating. Your whole body, your heart's going to be like pounding out of your chest. Your forearms are going to be like sore afterwards because you're like, okay, just get it across without spilling it all because everyone's going to know that. Like the more the importance of the task is, the more you're going to try to control everything your body does with your conscious mind.
Yeah, there's more skin in the game.
Yeah.
Like there's more skin in the game. And two things to that. It's also, what you were saying, this is a funny analogy too, and I'm going to go along the lines with your example with the Declaration of Independence and the wine. If you've done that 10,000 times, you're probably not worried about it.
Right.
But if you did it one time and then it's the most important thing, regardless if it's the Declaration of Independence, then it takes less energy, right?
Yes.
Like it's just like, okay, imagine like trying to walk and then think about, okay, I got to move my toe and then I got to step. And then
So it's completely inefficient. So when what'll happen is you'll be training in the gym and everything will be fine, you and your partners. And you can even have a good scrap. I mean, you can have an all-out war with one of your best training partners, right? You're still not going to be as tired as a post-tournament match. Sure. Because you're trying to it's so important to you. The result of this match is so important to you. And you've created it in your mind. And I'm not saying it's not important, but it is a fact. It is a result of what you have thought about, right? You're like, okay, well, I have to win this. That every single thing that happens, you're trying to like grab his pants and or move the guy out of the way. And you're like, I have to move this knee over here. You're not just like in the match in the gym, you just put your hand on his knee and move it. You don't even like think about it.
Yes.
But you're like, I gotta do it right. Like, and in the tournament, because that, you go back to like this, like where just me moving my hand, I'm flexing like every single muscle on my body to get to that leg. Whereas like in the gym, you just kind of like, you didn't even know that all of a sudden your hand was there.
It's just another training session. And then you're going to come back and you're going to come back. And there's, like we said again, there's nothing really at stake, right?
Right.
It's like, okay, yeah. And you know psychologically that like the guy, your partner is going to take care of you as well. It's
exactly.
not just going out there to kill you.
Yeah.
I think, that's a very, very interesting thought. With your high level of competition, does that ever go away?
It's a mixed bag. like sometimes I can be thrown off. For instance, last year I went to the nationals and I lost my first round, right? And it was all because I couldn't sleep the night before. I lost sleep and I thought, oh, you know what? It's not a big deal. I'm going to make it up. Like, like my match wasn't until like, later in the day. So I could sleep in and I'll be fine. But then like there was this thing that threw me off, like the hotel curtains like didn't close all the way. And there was just this beam of sunlight like in my face on the bed. And it like, dude, like if you were in any other situation, you would find the easiest, most effortless solution to that. And you would just flip yourself over to the other side of the bed or something, right? But since like I was like, no, it's important that I get sleep. Like I have to, oh man, the sun, like it like got, dude, I literally slept like 2 hours before the match. And then the fact that I slept 2 hours got in my head, like, oh, is it gonna affect my performance? If I didn't care, it wouldn't matter. Like I've rolled on 2 hours sleep before. I got 3 kids. Like it's like every night almost, right? But like just the fact that I had like driven 5 hours to Vegas, right? I was in the hotel. I had to get good sleep, and then I wasn't getting good sleep, and then I didn't get good sleep, and then I was sitting there and I was trying to get in the zone, and it like totally threw me off. And then my match didn't go right. Like I ended up losing just first round 2-0. Like guy swept me, just held on for dear life, and like I just like couldn't find a solution to get out of the situation I was in. And it was like, so that threw me off. But then like, for instance, like a couple weeks before that, I had one of the best tournament runs I had. And then just like a couple weeks ago, I won just a local tournament. And like, I felt really fine. Like I felt fine. I wasn't nervous at all. I just went in and just did my thing and then just like did really well. Like
what we were talking about, is it because it's a local tournament and there's not that much at stake, even though it is a competition?
There's definitely a factor.
Yeah.
But for me, I think because that is a factor. Because the bigger the stage, the more nervous you're going to get.
Sure, yeah.
Certainly.
I mean, compared to like ADCC, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I don't know, like, I think more along the lines of like, it's just how your mind is that day. Like, because I've had even like insignificant tournaments and my mind didn't seem right that day. And I just felt a little off. And
brain fog, maybe.
Yeah, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But, like, I think it's different because I have to be careful because when I give my students advice for competing, I tend to project where I'm at on them sometimes, and I have to take a step back because I've won, I've lost, I've got submitted, I've submitted many, many, many times over, right? Like I've been competing at black belt for over 10 years, right? So like, it's like, for me, it's not that big of a deal. Like whatever happens, right? Like the guy beats me, like he's good. If I beat him, then great, right? No problems. And so I kind of think like that. But there's a student that this may be their first tournament or this may be their third tournament, and they haven't experienced all that stuff, and they haven't experienced it so many times over that they're desensitized to it, right? So they're thinking like, oh, I have to go represent my gym. Like people are gonna be disappointed in me.
My coach is watching.
My coach and everything like that.
Yeah.
And for me, like, and I always tell them to do this thought experiment. I say, hey, look, do this thought experiment. Imagine I, Adam, your coach, went to a tournament this weekend, right? It's coming weekend. On Saturday, I have a tournament. Or let's say I competed last weekend. And then you ask me how I did. And I say, ask me how I did. And they say, okay, well, how did you do? I say, I lost. 30 seconds, the guy armbarred me right away. Yeah. I go, take a step back. Did your view of me as a coach or as a person or as a player, did it change very much after hearing that? Usually they say no. And I'm like, and I am the owner of the gym. I represent this entire team, right? You're a student here. You don't care that much if I get armbarred. You need to take a step back for a second. That's what everyone else is going to feel if you win or lose, right? We're going to be happy for you. It's not that we don't want you to win, right? We all want you to win. We do care about you, but nobody cares if you lose as much as you do. Nobody cares about that. And if you don't care that I lose, the literal guy representing your team, right? If you don't care that much that I lost my match, and it's not to say that you don't care that I lost, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like you're not going to lose sleep because your coach got armbarred. You're going to be like, oh man, next time he's probably going to win. The guy must have been good or whatever, right? And so I like to do that thought experiment with them and say, listen, nobody cares really. Like if you lose, they're going to say, okay, well, let's train harder. Let's prep harder next time. Let's go, right? Let's get back in there. And then they're going to go to sleep real easy tonight, right? So it is a nice thought experiment to have for people getting ready for a tournament. It's like, the people that matter to you They're going to support you either way. And they're not going to say, that's you now. You're the guy that lost. Like that's how you perform now. You just get a tattoo that says I lost. Like it's not like no one's going to say that.
Your own family members are actually going to be more proud of you. Right. And like you're saying, it's like a psychological battle that we have. And even as a coach, even that's running and leading the pack in jiu-jitsu, you can tell them all you want, but their mind is just going to run unless they feel the competition, unless they've gone through it, and unless you repeated them to them multiple times, and kind of coddled them a little bit,
right.
It's going to be okay. They have to kind of live with that because the emotions are a very complex thing.
Yeah. So like another thing is some of the kids will come up to me and I'll be like, hey, do me a favor. I want you to tell me something. Is like, are you scared to compete? And they'll say, no. And I'll be like, well, I am. And they'll be like, what do you mean? They'll be like, I'm a little scared. And they'll be like, why are you scared? And I'm like, because it's a little scary. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, it's a little scary. Don't try to tell yourself you're not nervous. That's the biggest mistake I think a lot of people make is like, no, I'm cool, man. I'm cool. And then there's like this disconnect from what you're saying to what you're feeling. Yeah. And then you just get this whole thing. And then now you're lying to yourself and everything. It's like, well, it's a sport tournament and there's rules and there's safety regulation and everything, but there's still risk involved. And there's risk to your reputation. There's risk to what you like. There's this dream that you have and it might not come true because you might lose, right? And all these things. So it's scary to go into it. So don't say that you're not nervous or you're not scared. It's just a little, but you don't have to be a lot scared.
Right.
Just say what you feel.
Yeah.
And that's going to you'll get over it a lot easier than if you try to be like, nah, dude, I'm fine. No, it's not. Yeah. And then, you know what I mean?
I love that. Because ultimately you can't lie to yourself.
No.
Right. And a lot of people, and it's not really to blame on other people because they don't understand what's going on. They're just kind of like, oh, like you just said, I'm going to go against whatever I feel so that I can get the emotions out of me and just be good. Like I'm a monster, I'm a beast.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, when you have that, I love what you said about the disconnect between like your mind and your emotions because you need those to be in sync to be good with yourself, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think that's a very interesting philosophy.
Yeah. I mean, that's step number one. Like step number one is just don't lie to yourself, right? You'll if you try and lie to yourself, you're not going to be able to get to step 2, 3, 4, and 5. You're just going to be stuck at step 1.
Yep. And
then you're going to go in, you're going to be nervous as all heck. Then you're going to your performance is going to go down significantly because you couldn't pass step 1. It's like everything, right? The first step to solving a problem is admitting you have a problem, right? It's the same thing. You can't move on unless you're like, you know what? I'm a little nervous. Like I'm a little scared to do this, right? And once you go, I'm a little scared to do this, but there's steps to prepare myself, to get my confidence up, real confidence, not just saying, oh, I'm good. Like I can do it. But like that is a thing, positive affirmations, everything like that. It does have a positive effect. But once it's built on an actual strong foundation, like that's why I say preparation leads to confidence, right?
Sure.
And
it's evidence, right?
Yeah, it's you can just look back and say, wow, I trained very, very hard for this, right? I deserve as much as anybody else in this bracket to win this bracket. And if someone else wins, fine. That's another one of the things I tell some students that may have, some issues with it. I say, here's my thing. I know to a certain degree that I am good at jiu-jitsu. So if you beat me, you better be good.
Right.
You better be good.
Yeah.
I know I'm going to perform well. So is it possible you beat me? Of course. But to do so, you have to perform better than me. And I know I'm going to perform well, so you better perform very well to beat me. And if it happens, so be it. But I'm just going to go out there and I know the level that I can play. And I'm going to play at that level. If you beat me, all the power to you. I'm going to shake your hand afterwards and I'm actually going to be very impressed in what you did. You know why I'm going to be impressed? Because I know I'm good. You know how I know I'm good? Because I train my butt off. Right? Yeah. You know how I know? Because I go to the other gyms. I do tournaments. I do these things. I know that relatively I perform quite well.
Yeah.
So, and it's just as a result of the blood, sweat, and tears that you put in every day. And so once you have enough confidence to say that, I'm not saying I'm the best in the world. I'm not even saying I'm the best in my city. What I'm saying is I know that I'm pretty good.
Yeah.
So if you're going to beat me, you better be better than me. And then that's like this next step, right? After you're like, yeah, it's a little intimidating, right? I'm going to go in, but guess what? I know that I'm prepared. I know that I'm good. They have to be better than me. Okay. Right? So you entertained all possibilities. You could win, you could lose, you can do all this. And then you can move up forward like, okay, how confident am I that I'm going to win the bracket considering whom I'm going against? Okay. Then you're going to do more in-depth preparation. Yeah. What are they going to do? Let me study their games. Let me do all that. None of that even matters if you can't get over the fact that like, you're just like, you know, a little nervous for this upcoming event that you're doing or whatever. Right?
Yeah. The mental gymnastics.
Yeah. You just have to accept, move forward, accept, move forward, like recognize these certain situations, move forward. When I do that, I feel very natural.
Yeah. The battle that we face, even if it's not in jiu-jitsu competitions, it can be anything, is mostly with ourselves. It's so crazy because
100%.
We straight up look at like, oh, there's a bigger guy over there. I heard he was like a killer, you know, saying jiu-jitsu. It's like, oh man, look at the stripes on his belt, whatever.
Yeah.
But man, like, yeah, that's your own problem almost. Yeah. And it's kind of hard to face that reality because it seems like we're delegating it to, you know, what's in front of us, right?
Yeah.
And then we're not self-aware enough to look at like our own minds.
Yeah.
I mean, I think for the most part, everyone knows it's psychological.
Right.
It's just, I don't know if they have the capacity yet to kind of deal with it. It's kind of like, what do I do if I'm tripping out? It's like,
well, and that's part of I think it's part of a coach's duty too, to sort of guide their students through that process, you know? And then another thing that I like to do as a coach is to, I want everyone to go and support our team and not compete. I want everyone to go to a tournament before they compete.
Okay.
The reason is because it is especially with the kids, it is a rule for me with the kids. It's just advice for adults. But on my kids team, you actually must go to a tournament and watch first before you actually participate in one. Because what you get is it's a sensory overload. If you don't know what to expect, you're going in and taking all this information for the first time. It's loud. People are yelling, coaching. Some kids are really good. You're seeing kids doing like bearing bolos to bow and arrow chokes. And you're just like, what is that? Like, you don't even, if it's the white belt kid, maybe like, or a gray belt, maybe they don't do that yet in the gym. And then you see this happening and everyone's different patches, new visual stuff. The smell is different, right? The bullpen, the process, everything, like it's all new. And when that happens, you just get overwhelmed. And again, it's another thing just like bashing at your, I guess your like fortification, right? That you have. And I've seen a lot of kids just break before the match even starts. They're like, I see them, they're looking for a way out. They're like, I can't even do this. Like they don't even want to go in. And it's not even because they know the person's good. They don't even know what's going on. It's just because it's a full sensory overload, right? And I've seen it happen to adults too. I had one grown man, right? I was not going to say his name, but he was a grown man. And we were going to a tournament, first tournament. It was, I think it was like one of the San Diego IBJJF Opens a while back. And we were down there, and it was because in San Diego, I knew a lot of people, right? And so he gets down there, and I can tell he's a little nervous, whatever, right? And he was doing the thing where he didn't want to admit, he was saying he was fine, whatever. And then all of a sudden he gets to the weigh-in, and they're checking his uniform, and they're like, oh, like your belt, it doesn't have the black like patch on it. You have to have the black patch on your belt. For
competition, like what's that rule?
Regulation, rule set, whatever. And that's fine, right? So I told him, I said, hey, don't worry. I got a buddy in the stands, and we go ask if he has an extra belt, you know, and it'll all be fine, right? That is like the straw that broke the camel's back. It broke him. Just the fact that I needed to just go get another belt because he was just, whoa. And it like, again, it was like sensory overload. He didn't know what to expect. They're checking his gi. The person's all skeptical now. Like, what belt is this? They're looking at him, right? I mean, just have the worst when they, like other organizations are like kind of cool. Like, hey man, your belt, I'm going to have to ask you. I'd be just like, last time I was in the IBJJF one, they checked my gi. He just was like, change gi.
It's so crazy.
Like so hard, right? And I'm like, okay. Like I had an extra one waiting just in case.
Yeah.
So I was prepared. But see, some people they don't know, right? So even though I was easily able to go in the stands, I found one of a coach from another school that I know well. And I was like, hey, you got an extra white belt, like A2, A3 size. Let's see if we can fit this guy. And he's like, oh yeah, let me check. Had one, like it was effortless, right? He's like, here it is. I go down, I'm like, got the belt, buddy. And he was just like, and he was like freaking out after that. Yeah. Goes out, just totally shuts down in the match, doesn't play any of his game. He's just like, and it was lit because it was a sensory overload. And this is adult male, right? And this is a guy that you wouldn't even, he was fine. Like he didn't have any like issues or problem like that you could see outright. It was just the first time, and it was just so much information coming in.
Yeah, it's borderline like a panic attack.
Yeah, it's what it is.
Right?
It turns into that.
Yeah, it turns into that.
If you don't know what to expect.
Exactly.
Yeah, so with my kids, it's mandatory. You cannot compete for my club unless you go and like support. Like one, for instance, we're going to do a tournament coming up in a couple of weeks. I have some young ladies that want to compete. I said, go to this one and watch so that you can compete in the next one, right? The next one, several weeks later, there's another one that we all want to go to. Go to this one, watch your friends compete or just see how it is because they're all pretty similar in how they work. And that way, when you go, at least it's not your first time seeing the process, parking, checking in, all that stuff. It piles up, and kids, they're kids, man. They're fragile. Like you know, you could have a really beast kid, and then the whole process before the tournament just turns them off, right? It's not even the tournament itself. It's just the getting ready.
Yeah. A couple things to that, and before we move on, the IBJ, like I had a friend, right? They're so strict, and I'm not like much of a competitor,
right?
You know, I don't compete honestly, but my friend, it was his first time. Like we were talking about, that's why I want to talk about this. So I'm sitting there like on his corner, you know, just to give him the moral support, whatever. His sleeve was about 1 inch off, and they were like, "You can't compete." And guess what? They didn't let him compete in his first tournament. I was like, dude, there's gotta be like some, I mean, I don't know where that comes from. Like, wait, it's just 1 inch off. What? Now he can't compete. And then he, I think, had paid this money already, right? And
that's a funny story. Okay, so 2008 Pan Americans. I'm a blue belt, right? I'm doing pretty good at blue, right? I'm thinking, man, maybe I can win Pans, right? I'm competing a lot. So I'm like, okay, so I registered for Pans. They had it up at Cal State Dominguez Hills, right? I go there, kind of nervous, whatever, right? Like, okay, like I had a decent mind frame though that day, right? I felt pretty confident. So we get there and I had my gi, right? It was one of my favorite gis. It was a Tama gi. Fit me so well. I got there, same thing, right? They're like, I think it was there wasn't enough like space between my bicep. And they were like, you can't use this gi.
Right.
And I'm like, what? Like, and this is 2008, right? I'm like 22 years old. I don't have any money, right? I like barely afforded to buy the ticket to compete, right? So I'm like, dude, what do I do? And then my buddy's there. He's like, I'll buy you a gi, right? They had a gi stand. I'm like, do not buy me a gi. He's like, just pay me back later. I'm like, I can't pay you back. I will not pay you. If you buy this, I will not pay you. I was like, he was about to do it. I'm like, no. It like totally threw me off. Then luckily, I had a first round bye. So if I didn't have a first round bye, I would have been disqualified. But what happened was my buddies like searched around and they got this guy that had just got done competing. And they're like, dude, can my buddy wear your gi? It's all sweaty.
Oh God.
Someone else's gi sweat. And they're like, just put it on. And I was like, all right. So I just like put this guy's gi on that's like soaked already, right? In sweat. Tied my belt, went in, ended up making it to the 16 round, right? Where there's 16 people left. I get a baseball choke on this guy, and no one knew what the baseball choke was at that time. So I got this. He double legged me to the ceiling because I was so nervous, right? Still, because I was like, it all threw me off, right? I thought I wasn't going to compete. I saved myself with a baseball choke, choked him out, not fully, but he almost went out. Then the next round, I was about to so this is the 8th round, I think. So, well, this is the quarter. Yeah, this is the round to get to the semis, right? So it's the 8th round. So if I win this, I medal. And I was like, dude. So, and I ended up losing by points, but I had a guy in the choke at the very end, and he like was gonna almost pass out. And it was like, if he passes out, I win. If he doesn't, he wins because he was up on like points by a little bit.
Right. So it's all or nothing.
Yeah. And then at the end, he just like, I remember his coach was like, don't tap. And then like at the end, like, I didn't even know if he was out or not. And then all of a sudden I see him just like, and his face is all purple, but like he like kept it together. And I was like, no.
Oh.
But like it was crazy because like I was on such an emotional roller coaster that day. And one of the reasons they DQ'd my gi, and I had to get a sweaty gi from some guy who already did his match.
Sure, yeah.
That was
you know what's funny about that story is I would have figured it happened more often than not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's kind of like, since they are that strict,
right?
Which I think is whatever, it's
fine.
Set, but
it's just, they're kind of like I think they have to deal with so many people, and so many people argue with them that they're just like.
They're like the DMV. It's like, okay, fuck off, buddy.
Nah, next.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Whereas some of the other tournaments are like, oh man, you're gi, man. And the results are the same, but they like
they'll give you a chance.
They'll
give you a chance.
Well, or something. I get one. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I think that's very that's a fascinating thing about IBJ. I never forgot about that because it's like almost an asshole-ish kind of way to go about it.
It seems like it, but like I get it though, because they're just so like they don't want to give anybody a chance to like try to like sweet talk them or anything. They're just like,
but Jesus, I mean, I guess it's their style, and I completely get it. But I guess it is what it is, right? That's interesting that you have people do that, and I think that's a very great tactic about the information overload.
Yeah,
especially if they don't have experience yet. I think that's the best way to put their foot in the water.
Yeah,
just to kind of see the sights, and especially not just watch videos at home, but bring them to the actual environment.
They got to be there.
They
got to hear it. Yeah. They got to smell it. They got to see the people. They got to feel the vibe when someone walks by them, right? With another gi on, with another patch, right? All of these things are just little tiny things, and by themselves, they don't add up to much, right? But when you go, it smells different. The sounds, the music's playing, people are shouting, the aggression. Some people are like, different levels of coaching, right? Different styles of, people watching and cheering, and then, people like getting armbarred or tapping, like the whole thing, everything just starts to like add up, right? And then, you're trying to breathe, you're trying to like keep it calm. But if you know exactly what to expect, like by now, like by myself, when I go to the tournament, I'm like, it feels like I love being in tournaments right now. It's great.
I'm sure you do after years and years of competition.
Yeah, like I love coaching tournaments. I love being there, like seeing everybody that I don't see that often, and you see all these faces again. You're like, hey, what up?
Yeah, it's more of a socialization.
It's very nice. Yeah. I like it. I like to go out and compete. And right now, like at my level, I'm in Masters 2. Next year I'll be Masters 3. It's pretty cool because I always say, man, the moment you click Masters, your mindset is a little bit different, man. Like I know this guy probably owns a gym, and all of us own clubs, right? We're out there. I'm not trying to tear. You can watch the highlights that I posted my last tournament. See how long I had that guy in the armbar. Count the seconds that I could have broke his arm, and I'm like looking at him. I'm looking at the ref, and I'm looking at him, looking at the ref. I'm like, okay, I'll pull a little bit more, right? Like at the same time, like, come on, man. Like what? If it's like adult gi world championships, that dude's arm is shredded. Right. I don't care. He's tapping. I'm like waiting till the ref peels the guy. I get it, because if you don't, the guy escapes and he like chokes you or something. So you have to do it, right? But in this environment, right, I got control. Like I got the arm.
You had him.
Even in a tournament, I'm like, I don't want to. Like, what am I gonna do? This guy's like 37 or something like that, right? Like this guy probably has kids. Like, you know what I mean? At this time,
it's just his ego is getting.
It's there, yeah. He doesn't want to tap, and I understand, and maybe he's used to people being more aggressive, so he's waiting for that moment of like I have to,
maybe
right?
Like a hitchhiker.
Yeah. So he's there, but he wouldn't like this last one. He wasn't going to do that. Sure. Like it was there, and I started because when you start to bend it over your leg, that's when it really gets. Yeah. When you like, because you're right here, right, and you're like, okay, I could do the old hips up, but as soon as you start to like push it over, you're like,
you're past.
Come on, buddy, like this is not going to be good. And, it's a different mindset when you're in the Masters division, right? And I think aside from like Masters Worlds might be different because these guys are like, the medal means something, right? Like winning the medal, like a couple weeks ago, I won a gold medal. It's in a shoebox. People maybe will see it one day. I don't know. If you win like Masters Worlds, that's a good one, right? That's one that you would want to like gain notoriety over. So people are going to be pulling arms, right? They are going to be more aggressive in those.
It's prestigious.
Yeah. It's prestigious. But even like an open tournament, even IBJJF Open, I did the same thing. I did the San Diego Summer Open last year, IBJJF. I got a guy in an armbar. I waited for him to tap. I had it. I knew I had it, right? Yeah, no problem. Like I don't I'm not competing for that notoriety right now. Some people might be, and that's a little bit of a different story.
Yeah.
They need to be able to say they're riding on that for their career, their reputation.
It's a lot, right? It's promotion, it's marketing.
Right. It's their whole thing. Exactly.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think, it's good marketing for me to win. Mm-hmm. Obviously I could post a little highlight reel and everyone can be like, oh, cool. Right. Yeah. But like, I that is not in my business plan. My business plan isn't win the worlds and then ride on the fame.
Yeah.
My business plan is different, right? It's create a quality program, right?
Right. Yeah. And I think you just have that innate, since you've been doing it for so long, it's almost like in your DNA now, right? Like you said, to you, it's not a big deal. To someone, even close to your level, compared to like getting that medal, it might be a big deal to them. But since you're on that level now with masters,
right?
Like you said, I understand, but I don't, since I'm not on that level, but I get it because of the stakes. Again, the stakes are higher. And even a bit of like a self pride kind of thing. You build yourself up you deserve it, quite frankly, to build yourself up to be able to compete in the Masters.
Right.
So now that you're there, throw Hellmaker and let's.
Well, so. Like by masters, it's just your age, right? Like,
I get it. Yeah. But that also counts for experience.
But like, it does. And a lot of times you look at the masters brackets and you're like, phew, like, cause all the OG, like, professional guys, they're all in the masters now, right?
Yeah, right.
And in San Diego, that's where they all live now, cause everyone wants to live where it's good. So the weather's nice and everything. Mm-hmm. So like, you get like the best guys. So you in that local tournaments down here, you're getting this guy who's like an ex-world champ or like podiums at Pans or something like that in the adult black belt Pans. And all of a sudden he's in your division and you're like, yeah, dude, I thought I was going in the Masters bracket, man. Then you do the math, you're like, oh yeah, I guess he is my age, man. Like, oh well, all right, I gotta go get this guy. But yeah, like I said, we all have, like, most of us in the Masters brackets at black belt, we have gyms or it's our career now. That's why we're competing. Not everybody. Some guys are just rec guys that come in and do it. Mm. But like one of the guys I played for sure owns a gym, because I looked him up. I was looking him up when I'm about to compete, right? Yeah. And I'm like, oh, he owns a gym. Yeah, he owns a gym. Okay. And so what that tells me is like, oh man, he doesn't want to go back to his gym saying that he lost the match. Mm. And so I'm like, okay, he's gonna be a tough one. He's not gonna give up easy. And sure enough, one of the guys I played in the finals a couple weeks ago, not a 1 ounce of quit in this guy. Not 1 ounce of quit. We were both completely depleted at the end of the match because, I knew that he didn't want to give up, right?
At that level, isn't that the standard now though? Like, you own a gym, you're competing at high stakes. I'm sure that you've had and the other guys too had many competitions under their belt.
Yeah, for sure.
Like you said, that I would, if I were in your shoes, which I'm not, that would be my standard. It'd be like, oh, this guy is going to get his arm broken before he taps, right? It's kind of like, because he has so much stake in
I don't know. I'd like to think, like I do this one arm bar in tournament and it served me well because it matches my personality. It gives me a lot of control over the person. And so I don't have to break their arm. And I really don't want to be honest. I just don't want to do that to somebody. But it's like, it's jiu-jitsu and you did sign up.
You're giving me no choice.
You're not going to tap, but right. I am going to keep pulling. So if you don't, but yeah, I don't know. I think if I can, I will refrain from hurting somebody. Mm. And that's different. I know some people are not that way. Some people will use the tournament as an excuse to hurt somebody. Like they want to.
Sure. Yeah. Some people have that psychological drive.
It's just the nature of who you are.
Right. It's a lot of factors. It's how you grew up. It's what your intention are going into, since it's such a primitive sport. Yeah. There's going to be people out there to hurt people. That's kind of for sure. Yeah. Consider it Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gyms, MMA gyms, Muay Thai gyms. Yeah. It doesn't matter.
Right.
We're that primitive. I'm an evolutionary psychology kind of guy, and our default is to be violent, but along the ways, we had these laws in place, and all of a sudden we can't just go around hurting people.
Yeah, it's just
we go in tribes. We go in tribes and take over, raid, pillage, whatever we got to do. And that's our ancestors, and that goes into our genes. But as time went along, it's kind of like, okay, well, I don't want to go to jail.
Right. Yeah, it's different.
Yeah. I think that's very, very interesting. Yeah, that stick is so fascinating because when I think of masters, yeah, it's a lot of older guys, but I think experience is what we do live for, right? I think.
Well, I mean, because you can do the math, right? Like Marcelo Garcia is a master, right? Like, you know,
he's also with like one championship now
you know
too.
what I mean? Like, there's guys. I mean, there's guys that don't even think they're that old, and you're like, oh yeah, they're masters now, right? Like, they're like, so you can get like in the mat, like imagine the guy that had to go against Shanji in like the Masters 3 bracket in the Euros, right? I think he did Masters 3 or something. Dude, Shanji Ribeiro is like one of the best guys to ever step on the mat, right? Yeah. And all of a sudden you got to go up against this guy, right? Like, like, I don't know, like you can count on your hand the times in the last like 2 decades he's had his guard passed, right? You're there. You know what I mean? And you got to go up against this guy and you're like, huh, okay. Like, imagine if you're just like a guy who like just got his black belt and you're going against somebody like that, right? Like, the Masters brackets can be pretty deep, like very deep. Yeah. So it's not, I mean, it is less time and the guys are older.
Yeah. And what you're talking about too is at a more experienced and I guess you could say higher level, it's the psychological aspect is still there, right? Like that's literally what you're saying because you trained all these years and then all of a sudden you have a big name that you see everywhere on social media and all that. And it's kind of like, oh, okay, I've studied this guy. I literally practice his moves, some of his moves, and you know, and now I'm facing him. Yeah. Oh, goodness.
And it's kind of cool. Like you can amp yourself up. You can go against him. And a lot of times you get better, even if you know, regardless of whether you win or lose, when you do that. But yeah, it's just you know the depth. But I like the, you know, it's a constant kind of meme in the jiu-jitsu community that the masters are all like chill, you know, like, and then the adults are like freaking out on each other. But to a degree, it is kind of true. I mean, I've had some masters go pretty hard, you know, on me, you know, that's fine. You know,
yeah. I mean, but that's probably because, you know, they know that like you can take it. Like, what are they going to do? Like, okay, since, you know, he's not like a big name.
No,
he's not over social media. I'm going to take it easy.
You do your best, right? You try your best. Obviously, everyone's going to try their best, right? It's interesting, you know, and this talk about, like the importance of tournaments and the fact that you get like real nervous and stuff like that to compete. And then there's also like your gym roles where you're, you know, experimenting and you're not supposed to have the ego in the gym and everything like that. What it does is it leaves this gap, right? It leaves a gap like where between casual gym roles and like tournament roles. And so like a while ago, I realized that there is a way to create something, an environment that's kind of in between those two things. And so that's something that I kind of want to talk about is the environment that you're in when you're in the gym, your accountability is not very high. Even if you have like knockdown, drag out matches with guys, you got like, your guard could be passed, you could get mounted or your back taken. And then if you escape, like you just kind of, you know, if there's a net, you know, if you're not getting just tapped over and over again, you might not be reflecting on those errors that you made. Because, you know, it's just a gym roll, right? Don't worry about it. Right? You're here to get better.
Yeah, like we keep going back to the theme.
Yeah, in the tournament, you're so amped up that like, you know, it can be a lot, or it can be a lot for some people, right? And some people actually don't compete because it's so intense, right? And so there's a way that, you know, that you could have more frequent roles that are important and where you're held accountable. And one of the things that I've been working on for a while, for the past several years, is getting a like ranking system into jiu-jitsu where everybody can do it. There's been the past like year, there's been a lot of talk about like ELO ranking in jiu-jitsu, and I think that is the answer. But a lot of people are going about it in, I think, questionable ways, and I don't think they thought it completely through. And so what I've done, me and this guy Tyler, who's my business partner in this whole thing, what we have created is a web app basically that you can log into, and we're going through trials and tests right now. We've been using it for the past like 3 months, I'd say, and has pretty good feedback from there. And basically you get rating points, and based on your result of your match, you exchange points with a partner, right? And so we can just challenge each other to a match right here, right now. We can do it. If we both had our phone, you log in, you scan a QR code on my phone, somebody else scans one, boom, and we're in. And we have somebody keeping
Is it
score.
connected like as in, oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
so
like a community app.
Yeah, but here's the thing, like there has to be a physical port so that people don't game the system and cheat. So the fact that you have to
So like
their
manually type their progress.
So
I don't even know why people would do that. If
trust
you're
me,
getting
you
the app,
get people doing it. So
that's insane.
So if you scan a QR code, it's a little bit better, and then they go do their match. And so we've been doing that for quite a while, and it's been pretty fun. And what you get from there is you get a lot of benefits. One of the benefits is that you have a match that you're held accountable for. Both people were going to try their best now, because if you beat me, you're going to get points. But if I beat you, I'm going to take points from you, right? So you're not going to let me get that guard pass.
It's like a tug of war.
Yeah, right. You're not going to let me, you're going to try your best. And I know that now. And so, but you don't get the nerves. You don't get the commitment and the financial commitment and everything. You just do it right here in your gym, right there. And literally everyone could participate in this, right? And why would everyone want to participate? Well, let's just say you're a hobbyist. Let's say you're like a purple belt, been training for, maybe like 5-6 years, and you just come like a couple times a week. And so you're not like as good as the new up and comers, right?
That do it every day.
Got this 20-year-old blue belt that's like biting through 2x4s, right? He's a D1 wrestler, right? He comes in, right? And you're this guy, right? And then now you're expected to beat him because you're a purple belt, right? So if he mops the floor with you, you feel like you don't deserve your belt and like that.
That's so
interesting. But what
if
that blue belt was rated a 1900 and you were rated a 1500? Well, the moment he walked through the door and you're like, oh yeah, what's your rating or whatever? He's like, oh, 19. And you're like, holy crap, you're good. Like your performance is very high. So you're probably going to beat me. And I don't have to feel bad if you beat me, because that's your performance rating. You have a really high performance rating. You can know one move and have a high performance. We all know the guys that are just hard to beat, right? So it's an accurate representation of your performance, not necessarily your breadth of knowledge, right?
Right.
And so I think that's one thing that jiu-jitsu belts have a hard time doing. Everyone knows that you can't just look at someone's belt color and assume how good they are from a raw performance standpoint.
Yeah, but sometimes they do, right?
Yeah, sometimes, yeah. But it doesn't do a very good job at all at predicting what a match outcome will be.
Sure. Yeah.
But a performance score, given enough match history, will do a very good job at predicting how the match will go.
Yeah, right? I definitely think it's smart, because I'm an analytics guy myself. Like I run this podcast, and I have a kickboxing channel, shameless promo, but what we do, what us YouTubers quote unquote do, is that we like to look at the numbers. Yeah. For external reasons, I'm not gonna lie.
Sure.
But mostly to better our channels, right?
Yeah.
Because what you can measure, and this is like a Paul Bloom quote, forgive me if I get this wrong, but what you can measure, you can manage. Mm-hmm. So I think that's what I wanted to talk to you about too, because now if we're talking analytical numbers, you can gauge those numbers, and numbers don't lie, right? Sometimes they could be a little bit mischievous, but they don't lie.
But given enough, the curve starts to smooth.
Right.
You see a trend, right, in your performance versus other people's performance, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think it's been cool. So what we've been doing is we've been hosting like open nights. So every Friday night at 6, people are invited to come participate for now. And every week we add another feature so that we can get feedback and polish everything up. We want to do it right. We don't want to just I've seen a couple people put some out, but they're neglecting some factors that ultimately lead to the system not working. And we've thought through those factors, but it takes time to implement the strategies. And also, once the strategies get put into the real world, they have to be tweaked a little bit, right? So week after week, we're putting in more, and we're pretty close, I would say in the next couple of months, to just releasing it and having everyone be able to use the app anywhere.
Awesome.
Yeah.
these apps, especially where technology going is such a big thing. That's where we're literally headed, right?
Yeah.
I think number one, it's smart. Number two, with the rise of like MyFitnessPal, you know, and all that stuff, it's a huge thing. I mean, people have, I'm blanking out, but they have those things on their wrists to track their like sleep.
Yeah.
Everything's tracking nowadays to track their steps and all that. And why not implement that into jiu-jitsu, right? It's almost like it's a numbers game. It literally is.
And it can really, really help you. And talk about training for tournament. It's the best training for tournament because this match matters now. And the more you do it, the better you're going to feel for tournament. In my opinion, as a coach, it's one of the best ways to prepare yourself for an upcoming tournament is to do several ranked matches with people, right? Exchange points, win or lose, and get used to it, right? And the cool thing about it is, imagine everyone uses our app, right? Imagine this, everyone's on our app. Well, now you can actually throw tournament based on ratings and not based on belts. You can't sandbag your rating. You can't be like a 10-year purple belt, just like mopping everyone up.
All right.
As soon as you win, you gain more points. If you win again, you gain more points.
Yeah.
And let's say your division was like, okay, this division's between 1,000 and 1,200. Well, I want to sign up for it. Oh, sorry, you're 1,350. You have to go to the next one.
Right.
Oh yeah, but those guys are too. Well, you're at 1,350. If you stay back, those guys are too easy for you. You got to go in here. And then the cool part about having a rating is when you eventually get to the point where your rating actually resembles what your actual performance is, and you go with people that are also calibrated equally, your win-lose rate will be close to 50-50. So you're gonna win a lot if you're really good at the first, but you're gonna reach a point where everyone else that has gotten to that point is just as good as you. And so unless you're the best in the world, you're gonna reach a point where you're winning and losing about equal amount of times. And that's a really good ratio for personal growth, right?
Yes.
You don't know if you're going to win or lose the match. This guy is as good as you. In a tournament, I've gone against people in a tournament where I was like, if we had ratings, I would estimate my rating to be like 500 points more than theirs. And it's just they're not going to beat me. But I've also gone against guys in tournaments where I'd probably lose to them 8-9 times out of 10, right? Or knockdown, drag out matches where it might be 50-50, right? So like, this would be a way to guarantee that a match is going to be good for you, right? Because we go to this tournament and you see me out there, and maybe you might see me just armbar this black belt. And you're like, wow, he armbarred a black belt, right? He armbarred a black belt. Yeah, but if you saw our ratings, you'd be like, well, that's not even really impressive because you're whatever, a 2,000 and this guy's a 1,500.
Yeah, right? and it's funny because that reminds me of like how they do things in the like professional sports world where they go like four out of seven games, right?
Right.
And then the best team will beat you. Like it's clear as day who the best team is if you play that number of games.
Yeah.
That's why I think, again, going back to it, numbers are so important because like you just said, if someone gets armbarred, okay, maybe they might have got it at quote unquote fluke-like.
Yeah.
But if you measure it as a numbers, gamify it, should I say, as a numbers kind of game, it's almost like, well, buddy, I've gotten this much, you can track it. You can literally track it. So yeah, I think that's fascinating. That's what, kind of going off topic, that's what I never liked about like the football system. I don't know if you watch like playoff football, but it's one and done.
You're out.
So you're out. But it's almost like, wait a minute, these guys are in the top of their divisions. If they played like 10, whatever out of 10 games, well, that's going to determine who the best skilled.
Yeah, because it happened in NHL, NBA, MLB, they all played series.
Yes.
Yeah, they all play series.
Yeah. And a long enough time scales, again, those numbers will show.
Well, the fans won't be complaining if they had to do football series.
Sure.
But the players might be a little banged up. Football is pretty.
I mean, there's another side of that, right? Because again, this seems to be the theme of this podcast is that there's more at stake. If you're going to play one game, it's like, everyone's going to be like, oh, this is the game, just like the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Right? It wouldn't make it as much prestigious and exciting as the Super Bowl.
Exactly. Yeah.
But to kind of, we're nearing, the hour mark, but to end this podcast, since we've been talking about like, competition, let's go with the gi since you have trained. You are like the master of, your own skills in the gi since you've been training it for so long. What tip would you have as far as like the certain nuances of moves in the gi that you'd advise someone, like if they were entering a tournament?
Okay. So like the best like bang for your buck to like ROI.
Maybe
type.
basics or something. You know what I mean? Like what practicalities in a tournament that work in the gi. Like
Okay.
you could say that.
All right. Yeah. I think. Well, I guess it depends on the position you want to get to. So if you're a guarder, and that's something that, you know, basically if I pull guard, I'm saying I think that I'm more likely to sweep you or take your back or score somehow on you than you are to pass my guard. Like I think that I have a higher likelihood of scoring on you from the bottom than you have of passing my guard.
Interesting.
If that's the case, if you feel good about that, that could be a strategy. And that's why it exists, right? Because of the rules.
Yeah.
Right? Because of the rules.
Yep.
The way the scoring system in most tournaments are set up, you score by doing a certain amount of things. If your plan is to be on top, you have to have a good set of takedowns, right? And a good set of responses to open guard. As far as preparation goes for tournaments, I usually only prepare for the first few exchanges and then specifically in positions that are like likely to happen because you only have so much bandwidth. So I would say something in specific that I would want somebody to train is, well, one of them is a solid takedown. You have to have solid takedowns.
Yeah, like your go-to.
Yeah. If you're a guard puller, maybe not so much. But then the same thing, you have to be purposeful with your entry to whatever you're doing. So whatever grips you get, like let's say like you want to get to the De La Riva. Well, you're going to pull guard. You got to go straight into that and you have to go straight into your tactic. You can't get a guard and then like be like, what is this guy going to do? Because then he's going to show you what he's going to do. And it might be good. It might be good. Whatever he has, I don't want to know what you know in a tournament.
He might surprise the hell.
I don't want to find out your best move because finding out your best move means you do it on me, right? I don't even want to know like what your best guard pass is. Sure. I want to like instantly off balance you. And then from then on, chain attacks together in an offensive cycle until I get something. That's ideal. And so you have to like be comfortable within whatever guard system you have or within whatever passing system you have or takedown system. You have to be comfortable in it to where you can regain what people are calling the offensive cycle. I call it the attack initiative. Like if I do 7 guard passes on you and I don't pass your guard, it's not a total loss because all you've done is block my guard passes. You haven't done one offensive thing.
Right.
Yeah. What you trained for, I guarantee you didn't go, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to do this tournament. And you're driving up, you're thinking in your mind, okay, I'm going to just sit down and he's going to endlessly pass my guard as I struggle to replace.
Yeah.
Nobody's planning that, right? What they're planning is, I'm going to get the De La Riva, I'm going to pull the guy down off balance, I'm going to lift his leg up, and I'm going to get underneath, I'm going to get the single leg X guard. They're thinking of that. That's what they're thinking.
Offense.
Offense, right?
Their sweep.
And so what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to take them out of their prep. This is where we started, right? I want to take them out of their preparatory things. I want to get into this point where they're recovering and they're in this point of urgency and the only thing you can do is defensive. And then I want to keep that chain going where like I'm doing like knee cut pass. Oh, they move to the other side, smash pass. They go to the other side, leg weave. Okay, pop back up. Okay, now we're in half guard. See if we can get an underhook, right? I'm like trying to chain these things together so that like they don't get a chance to breathe. They don't get a chance to like set up their tactics. They're just blocking my tactics, right? And then the same goes for a guarder, right? You got to be the guy that pulls underneath, instantly off balances me. I have to take a step back because I took a step back. That wasn't part of my passing plan, taking a step back. Now you have to weave the leg through. Now you got to pull me in. And now I got to break the collar because you got a collar grip that's bugging me, right? Yeah, I have to break it, right? I have to do all these things. And like, if I didn't prepare exactly for that, which some people do, how you prepare for that is just sparring specifically in the scenario and drilling that like over and over. But like, that's not what they dreamed up when they got in that tournament.
Yeah, that's not what they thought. They didn't go as planned.
Yeah, and if you're reacting, it costs you more metabolically to react than it does to initiate something that you know that if you're being offensive, it costs you less than the person having to defend most of the time, right?
Because you're playing to their beat.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah, you have to respond.
The other guy's leading the dance.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And so that, I mean, I know it's kind of like, it's not like a specific technique, like it's not like a specific set of grips or whatever. Like I like to do like leg shelves and like leg pinches and like sort of like dynamic outside passes against bigger guys. Like it's smaller guys, like do body lock stuff because they're faster than me and I don't want them to, I'll never race them around the outside. So I'll like get real tight and do like knee cuts and body
closing the gap.
Yeah, close the gap. It depends on the person, right? But you got to get that down, I guess. You know, you got to get those tactics down. But like whatever you have to create a game plan that you can stay in, like this little like central hub, right? Like you can get to like headquarters, or you can get to like, you know, your collar and sleeve grip if you're guarding, right? And these are positions where a lot of things can happen from there, and there's a lot of offensive ideas. And so being able to stay in that offensive pocket and go from one thing to the next, regardless of however the person responds, and to keep that chain together, that's how you're going to get the best performers, right? Performance-wise, if you can chain those things together and keep them on the defense and just kind of like, you know, like hunt them down, right? Mercilessly, then they're going to start drowning eventually, right? They get behind.
They're going to give in. They're going to get fatigued.
Exactly.
And psychologically break down as well.
So like tactically at a high level, that's how a lot of people are winning, is that they keep the person on their heels enough till they get a certain amount of control and they wear them out. And then from there, if you have a worn out opponent, you can pretty much do whatever you want.
It's a game of attrition.
Yeah,
for sure. Well, man, I appreciate you, Adam. This has like been a wealth of knowledge. And thank you for having me, man.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, dude.
Let's go.